This is my third time trying to film this video. First time I bumped the microphone and accidentally muted myself halfway through. The second time I did not notice that I had this little piece of what's peeling off from my headphones stuck to the side of my face the entire video. 10 seconds into the playback, there it is. Fun times, fun times. Hi, I am Charles of SirBookSage. Welcome to my summer 2022 TBR. My number one reading priority for this summer is, let's see if I can point to it, right up here. George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood. Now, I'm familiar with most of the material in there, and I've skimmed through it from time to time just to reference things. But I haven't actually just sat down and done a cover-to-cover full read-through of all of it. So I'm going to be doing that, particularly with the House of the Dragon TV series coming out soon. Now, this covers a lot more than just the events of that TV show, because that TV show is just about the Targaryen Civil War that referred to as the Dance of the Dragons. You know, it's always fun diving into Martin's world, and I love these sort of companion books to series. Way overdue to just give it a proper full read-through. My other reading priority is actually this novel called Legacy. It's book 5 in Gail Z. Martin's Deadly Curiosities urban fantasy series. So it's a Martin and Martin priority for the summer. And this is book 5 in her urban fantasy series. The series follows this woman, Cassidy, who owns this antique shop in Charleston, South Carolina called Trifles and Folly. It's an antique shop that's been in her family for pretty much about 300 years. It's older than the United States. While it's a legitimate store, antique store that buys and sells antiques, it's also kind of a front for what her family's real business is. And that is protecting people from objects that become supernaturally charged and become dangerous. So she's part of this sort of secret society that exists around the world that includes vampires and other sort of supernatural characters. And she wasn't aware of this growing up because it was her uncle who was that generation's inheritor of that power. So she became aware of this like last minute when her uncle was dying. So she was never properly trained in how to do what she does. So she's learning on the job. But it's a fun story. Her and her like co-workers, her close friends, an object will become dangerous. They'll kind of investigate it, try to neutralize it, and that usually ends up sucking them into a much larger event that's taking place that imperils people in Charleston. Outside of that, my main like long-running like fantasy reads are still ongoing. I'm reading Malazan, Book of the Fallen, and it's the Malazan Companion series, all for the first time. I'm reading through Honor Harrington, sort of space opera from David Weber, for the first time, and I've recently added the Walt Longmire series by Craig Johnson, which the Longmire TV show is based on, which is completely outside of my normal wheelhouse, or whatever that actual phrase is in terms of reading. But I love the TV show so much, I checked out the first book, and it just sucked me right in, and now I'm just hooked on this story. So those are just long-term reading projects. So every quarterly seasonal TBR is going to, by default, include at least one of those books from one of those series. I really want to get to at least 2 Malazan books this summer, because I'm at that halfway point now in the 16-book story, and I really want to like start picking up steam as I go towards the home stretch. But we'll see. Malazan books are very much a mood read for me. I might barrel through 2 or 3 of them in like 2 weeks, or I might take 2 months, 3 months to read one. So I never know what to expect reading Malazan in terms of how my reading habits are going to be. It's all over the map for some reason. But really, really, really loving that series. I haven't read any since January, so I'm way overdue. I am also revisiting some classics this summer. Some of them are actual classics, and some are just classics to me. So I am doing another reread of The Lord of the Rings. It's been 5 years since my last one, so more than due. And that's going to be a nice, slow, leisurely read over the summer. And I'm just taking my time. It's my favorite. Tolkien's whole Legendarium is my favorite works of literature. So they're always a pleasure to read. And I'm just going to take a nice leisurely read through of this trilogy again, of this Lord of the Rings story. And I'm going to be rereading the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien over the summer as well, as kind of a companion read to revisiting the Lord of the Rings series. So it's been a while since I read his letters, so fun to dive back into, getting a look into the mind of the professor himself. Really interesting letters. I mean, the guy's like Oxford professor, so his command of language is quite exquisite and quite fascinating. The other classics are classics to me, and I am revisiting some early Andre Norton science fiction reads. Andre Norton was the first sci-fi books I read. I was a fantasy reader, and then when I picked up Andre Norton's Witch World, which is it starts off as a portal fantasy, but it's kind of just a fantasy book. It had some science fiction elements as you got deeper into that series. And I noticed she had these science fiction books. So Star Rangers was the very first science fiction book I ever read, which is by Andre Norton. And I just reread that for the first time in like 30 years, like a couple of days ago, to start off my summer reading. So throughout the summer, I'm definitely going to dip back into those early Andre Norton sci-fi books, like revisiting like me 30, 40 years ago. So I loved Star Rangers just as much this time around as I did the very first time I read it when I was in elementary school. So yeah, I'm going to be revisiting some more of those. I haven't picked which ones yet. I'll just kind of comb through, and whichever one jumps out at me, that's the next one I'll read this summer. So there'll be a few of those spread throughout these next 3 months of just revisiting seminal reading moments for me as a young child. September is going to be a very special reading month for me because this September marks my 5-year Booktube anniversary. And I have this little reading project that I've been meaning to do for a while. When I first discovered Booktube in August and then joined in September. If you looked at the videos people were making back then, there was a few stories that every Booktuber shelf had. Grishaverse stuff, Lunar Chronicles, Raven Cycle, and Cassandra Clare's, the Shadow something stuff. Like every Booktuber had all these books on their shelf. So I have been meaning to, one of these Septembers, to finally get to reading one of those. And this September, I am going to be reading The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I have read the first book. A few years ago, I finally got to the first one. Morgie Reads, one of my favorite Booktubers. She absolutely gushes about this series. And I read the first one and really, really enjoyed it. I had no idea what to expect, and I really did enjoy it. It was different than what I normally read in terms of fantasy. And I read the ebook and listened to the Audible, and the actor Will Patton does the Audible, and he's a fantastic audiobook recorder. So I'm going to be rereading that first book again, and then reading the rest of that series in September. And I might make this like an annual thing where maybe in September 2023, I'll finally read the Lunar Chronicles, which is one of the other ones that everyone had on their shelves. But definitely the Raven Cycle this September. Outside of all of that, it's just there's going to be the occasional, other books scattered in. I still have my reading in bed at night urban fantasy stuff, where I'm finishing up the next Horngate Witches urban fantasy book by Diana Farrow Francis. I want to finish that series this summer. So she has this other series that was 4 books, and she just published book 5 in to finish that series off. So I'm eager to read that urban fantasy series from her next. A couple of more books to go in the Horngate Witches one first to close that out. Good stuff, fun stuff. Now, outside of all of the reading, I do want to do some live streams this summer. I actually want to get to where I actually have a regular scheduled weekly live stream. But I want my live streams to actually have a purpose, though. So I don't want to go live just to go live. I want them to actually have a specific reason and purpose for why I do them. One of the things I'm thinking about is I like them because they give you a little more flexibility as a booktuber. to talk about like stories in general, or maybe a particular story or a character, or just theorize about like what's going to happen in a series when the next book comes out. But I definitely want to do a weekly live stream. Live streams are fun. I suck at doing solo ones right now because I just don't have the experience doing solo live streams. I used to be on a craft beer live stream years and years and years ago, like every Friday night, but that was like 10 of us, so we're just hanging out in a group drinking beer and, you know, talking crap. So, but solo live streams where you're running the whole thing yourself, it's a different beast. So, but I definitely enjoy it and want to do more of it. So there'll be at least one live stream a month for the summer. And then, like I said, I'd like to get to the point where it's a regular weekly thing. So most likely Sunday nights for now. Just it's the easiest logistic-wise for me. Though if Saturday night is when everyone's on watching live streams, if that's where the audience is, I might end up with a Saturday night live stream. We'll see. I don't know yet. But there'll be some live streams coming. My most recent live stream, you can find here on the channel, it'll probably be here in one of the end cards, is I just kind of talked about my thoughts on all the Disney Plus Marvel MCU TV shows and what I thought of them as stories and characters and stuff. And that has a fun like top 10, top 5 and top 10 like favorite characters lists. There's the full live stream available, but I also like each sort of section of the live stream, I have its own little video on my channel. So they're available for you if you have any interest in who my top 5 MCU characters are and my top 5 expanded MCU top 10 expanded MCU characters are, if you include Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Netflix Defenders Marvel shows. I don't have a live stream scheduled yet. Definitely here sometime in July I'll have one. Let me know what you're going to be reading this summer. Do you have any like book you've been waiting and dying to get to? Let me know what it is. I'm just always curious what other people are reading, even if it's outside my normal sci-fi fantasy stuff. We've now reached the part of the video where I always forget how to actually wrap up and end a video, and normally and smoothly. So, I am Charles' Book Sage. Happy reading.